Okay, next problem. Let me spin it up in Visual Studio. Close, close, close. Next problem, create an application that declares sales transaction objects. Again, any noun can be a class. A sales transaction is a thing. Sales transaction contains fields, instance fields, for a name, an amount, and a commission, as well as a field for the commission rate. So obviously the commission is different than the commission rate. And then it starts talking about some constructors. So here's something new. We haven't created our own constructors yet, but we will in this lab. So that's definitely something new. So let's go ahead and spin this up with a add a project. And the class is called sales transaction. So let's add a C# class. Sale transaction. Since naming conventions are so important, remember your classes are singular, right? It's a single noun. Sales transaction. It's not sales transactions. It's a single thing. Sales transaction singular. Let's spin it up. Let's change it to public. Let's make our instance fields. And those fields are what? A name, an amount, a commission, and a commission rate. Private instance field, string, name, private, decimal amount, private, what do we got here? Commission, decimal, now sales amount. I'm going to call this sales amount, and then this is commission amount. Private read only, that's new. Double commission rate. Talk about what a read-only is. A read-only field can only be set in a constructor. Now we remember we had a constructor for free. They look like this. And if you remember, this one for free has a name. This is called the default constructor. Okay? We've learned two methods already to put data in and pull data out. We learned methods called accessors and mutators, and then we learned properties. Okay? Here's the third way to put data in. The third way to put data in is using constructors. Now, constructors are not used to pull data out. You can use methods for that, or you could use properties for that. But constructors are used to put data in when you construct the object. Okay, so let's look at our constructor. It says one constructor accepts the values for name, amount, and rate. And when the sales value is set, the constructor computes the commission and sales value times the commission rate. Okay, so there's an explanation of one constructor right there. Okay, now constructor is a method that has the same name as the class. That's the rule of the constructor. It's a method. You're also going to notice the constructor does not have a return data type. Okay, so rules behind constructor. Number one, same name as the class. Number two, there's no return type, not even void. Okay, so there's not even a void return data type on line 19. Okay, and a constructor is used to build an object with values other than the default. Remember the defaults? We talked about the defaults. 0 and 0.0 and false and empty char. All of those are the default values for an object. So we're going to make, what's it called when you have two methods with the same name but a different signature? What's it called with two methods with the same name but a different signature? That's method overloading. Correct. So we're going to overload our method here. In other words, we're going to overload our constructor. Okay, we're going to make public sale transaction, string name, decimal sale amount. I'm going to change this to sale amount underscore, comma, decimal commission amount, comma, double commission rate. Okay, there's a lot going on this. This constructor has 4 inputs. So now we can construct an object and we can just put the data in right away when the object is built. We don't have to put the data in using a mutator. We don't have to put the data in using a property. We're going to put data in using the constructor. Okay, let's put some curlies here so that doesn't bark at me. Okay, so this constructor has 4 inputs. This constructor, still call it the default constructor, has no inputs. It's worth mentioning that if you code your own constructor and you still want to use the default, you no longer get it for free. If you code line 21 and you still want to use line 19, before we got the default constructor for free, we didn't have to code it. I said go ahead and code it, but you didn't have to. Okay? But if you want to code a constructor, an overloaded constructor, you now have to code line 19 for the default. You no longer get that for free. Okay? Now just like a mutator is going to do what? It's going to set the underscore name equal to the name. Underscore sale amount equal to sale amount. Underscore commission amount. And the rate equal to rate. So we're doing the same thing here as a mutator, but this is like one method that mutates 4 fields. This is one method that mutates 4 fields. So you set the instance field on line 23. Line 23, you set the instance field of name equal to the parameter name. Right? The variable up top equal to the parameter on line 21. Okay, the instance field equal to the parameter. Instance field equal to the parameter. Instance field equal to the parameter. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bada bing, bada boom. We can create a sales transaction object using this constructor to put our data in. So one method takes the place of like 4 properties, or as far as putting the data in, or 4 mutator methods. Okay, now if I want to use this, let's go over here, make a little button click. Of course we can have user input, but let's create a sales transaction. Button sales transaction. Create a click event. Sales transaction T1 equals new sales transaction. Okay. Line 12 is calling the default constructor. Remember, we get that for free. I said this before, but if I take that out, right, you used to get this for free, and when this catches up, this should no longer compile. Okay, so if you create an overloaded constructor, you no longer get the default for free. We're not using this default anyways, but let's just include it because it doesn't hurt. Now check this out. When I type this, notice it says 1 of 2. And I can go down and I can see, oh, if it gives me my IntelliSense without the thing getting in the way. Oh, it's get out of my face. It's not showing me the inputs like I wanted to because So when you call methods, of course, this method takes a string, a decimal, and a double. Right? String, decimal, decimal, double. Of course, you got to pass in that order, just like any other method call. String, decimal, decimal, double. Okay? So we're going to say string is the name of the employee. We got like 3 Jacobs, so this is going to be Jacob, comma. Okay, now you can see the overloaded right here. It goes string, decimal, decimal, double. It's going to tell you the data types that this method is accepting. So sale amount, 1,000 M for a decimal. The commission amount, so it's $1,000 sale. Let's say, wait a tick. Okay. The commission is set by taking the commission rate times the sale amount. So notice the commission rate, I'm going to change this. It makes sense, right? The underscore commission amount is equal to the commission rate times the sale amount. Anybody ever work on commission before? Of course, yeah. So you know, you sell something, you got a rate, and that's how much commission amount that you get. Now we got double times a decimal here, and so we need to take the commission rate, convert it to a decimal to get this to compile. So we got a decimal times a decimal stored in a decimal. So this constructor actually only takes 3 inputs: a name, an amount, and a rate. And then it will also compute the commission. Going back here, here's the name, Jacob, had a sale of $1,000, and the commission rate is a double, is 8%. We are now constructing our object using an overloaded constructor. And you're setting the values. One method to rule them all. Not at all. That's not the case. One method to put in all the data. I'm going to show you how to make one method to read all the data. Right? And so this constructor is setting all of our instance fields. And instead of calling like 4 different accessors or 4 different properties, I'm going to show you how to write one very useful method. And I know we've covered a lot, but follow me here, folks. Zone back in, if you would. Zone back in if you're zoned out.
I got a question.
Please.
I'm coding along with you and stuff like that, and I did exactly what you did, but I have a red squiggly.
Okay, so if there's one method to put all the data in, so one method to put all the data in is the constructor. And I'm going to make a toString method to read all the values. So toString, anytime you have a class, like a sales transaction class, it is pretty common to have a method called toString associated with that class. So I'm going to write public override, and then it lets me have a drop down, toString. So this override keyword, we're going to talk about it more in a future chapter, what this does. But notice this is one method called toString, and it returns a string. So that string that I'm going to return is basically the salesperson name, sold this much, sold 1,000 worth of inventory at a commission rate of commission rate for a total commission of commission amount. So we can have multiple sales transactions with different salespeople, putting them all into their objects, and you call this toString, and it outputs all the data about that sales transaction. So constructors are awesome because it's one way to put a bunch of data in. ToString methods are awesome because it's one way to get a bunch of data out. So this would say Billy sold $1,000 worth of inventory at a commission of 8% for a total commission of commission amount. Now there is a like a percent, right? You can do a commission rate of a P here. Commission amount can be a currency. And there we go. We're formatting our data with percents and currencies. And now let's call toString. So back over here, we created our transaction. And because this toString returns a string, you can just put that right into the label. Label result.text equals, and then call your toString method. So let's go ahead and create a label result.
Didn't you already do it?
I don't know, maybe. Let me see. Do I have a label result? I do not.
No, that may have been the last one.
Label result. And let's clear it out. Okay, just to show you how this works, I'll say label result.text is T1 toString. Again, one method to put all the data in, one method to pull all the data out, and it is nice and pretty. Whoops, let's run the right one.
Over to the left a little bit.
Oh, gosh. Good morning. Sales transaction. Click the button. Jacob sold $1,000 worth of inventory at a commission rate of 8% for a total commission of $80. Is that math good? 8% times 1,000, $80. Sounds good. Of course, our label if I go to the properties of my label, maybe we just change the auto size to false so we can kind of get some word wrapping going on. Okay. Now, again, just because I want to re-emphasize how to do this with an array, I'm going to take this out and I'm going to create an array of sales transactions, like maybe for a daily transaction, right? Daily transactions. Daily transaction is new sales, excuse me, it's an array, so I need my brackets. Sales array, let's say with 3 elements, if I can, there we go, semicolon. Okay, when you have an array, this dimensions the array. It does not create our objects. We need to construct our objects.
What if you didn't want to set how many?
That's kind of what Steven was asked. You could just ask the user for how many. You would have to get this 3 would be stored in a variable and then get that variable from the form at some point.
Yeah, just what I was thinking is like daily transactions. You may not know how many transactions.
Well, in reality, you're reading out of a database, right? And there's, in reality, I would use a list.
Okay.
In reality, I'd use a list. And we're going there. We're going to use a list. Let's have a for loop. Daily transactions.length. And daily transaction sub I is new sales transaction. Now the problem with this loop is that all of our data is going to be the same. All 3 of our objects are going to be the same. That's not very practical, so let's not do that, right? So I'm not going to use a loop to do this. I'll set daily transaction sub 0 is new sales transaction, and I'll pass in Jacob 1 had a $1,000 sale at a rate of 0.08. Daily transaction sub 1, new sales transaction. Jacob 2 had a $2,000 sale, and because it's a higher sale, it got a higher rate. And Jacob number 3, I'm pretty sure we got 3 Jacobs in this class, got a $3,000 sale and got a 0.1 rate. Now, I'm just to be thorough here, at the end of each toString call, I'm going to put a line break. So you call toString 3 times, put a line break at the end of each one. And so let's do a label result.text equals. Now here we could use a for loop on the output. For
Didn't you do the toString?
daily transactions.length. So I'm going to loop 3 times, and I'm going to append label result.text plus equals daily transaction sub I to string. So this is going to output the transactions for our 3 Jacobs into our label, and then keep appending to that label. Now we have an array of transaction objects. Okay. There is a shorter hand syntax of this. Okay, let's see if I can get this right. I'm going to plop, plop, plop. And instead of hard coding the 3, I'm going to put in some curlies right here. Say new sale transaction and pass it in right here. Comma. New sale transaction. So this is actually quite nice. Nice condensed syntax for putting the data in using the constructor call into an array. How awesome is that? We now have an array called daily transactions. Those transactions, this one line of code does both jobs. It dimensions the array with 3 objects and puts your data in using the constructor. I am recording all of it. Yep. Yep. Everything I've done, I've recorded. That's kind of the backup for why it's like, hey, let's not code along. Let's just pay attention right now. You could always refer to the recording later on should you need to. Okay? But, yeah, this is awesome, right? We've got an array initializer, right? So we're dimensioning the array, and we're initializing it with its data, which is 3 objects. Sounds like I'm a smoker. All right. That is that problem. No, it's not. That problem has some other requirements. Let's look at this. The second constructor accepts a name and a sales amount, but sets the commission rate to 0. We have another overload of our constructor. So let's just kind of flush out that problem. So this is our constructor. Let's make another overload. Sales transaction has a name and an amount. String name, decimal, sale amount. We set the name, we set the sale amount. It says sets the commission rate to 0. So I guess this is like you didn't get a commission, and therefore the commission is 0. I mean, if you have your rate of 0, your commission is also 0. Let's get the sale transaction. Let's get that correct. Okay, so here's another overload. That would allow us, now that we have another way of constructing our object, using 2 inputs. But on this, if we use this version of this constructor, there's no commission, right? So I guess some sales could have commissions and some sales don't. So if I go back to my array here, let's add a new sale transaction. Oh, Jake Bob, that's what you told me. Jacob 4, but this one, he just has, let's just say for whatever reason, anything under $1,000, $200. No semicolon there. Now, you can see Jacob 4 in our output. He should not have. Jacob 4 sold $200 worth of inventory at a commission rate of 0. And it's interesting, it actually didn't output. I must have run out of room on my label. Let's make this label bigger, because that's why you didn't see the rest, for a total commission of $0. Overloaded constructors, and finally the last requirement, the third constructor accepts a name, sets all other fields to 0. So, you know, Jacob 5 just hasn't sold anything. So here's another overloaded constructor, public sale transaction, string name, name is name, sale amount is 0, commission rate is 0, commission amount is 0. And back in the form, if we call a new sales transaction and just pass the name Jacob 5, no semicolon. Okay. Very cool. Overloaded constructors. Jacob 5 sold nothing with an inventory worth of inventory, 0%, and total commission was 0. So that's overloaded constructors, and that's that next problem.